We're talking about OTA, rumors and buzz. We're talking about best shape of his life season. We're talking about running backs are going to start running slant route seasons. It's just pure speculation, and it's some of the best times to go through some of the headlines that you see on NBC Sports Edge or on Underdog or on Roto Baller. It's the stuff that we love. We eat it up, and it's probably complete nonsense. But because of that, we're going to bring back probably everyone's favorite segment in all of fantasy football discourse. That's what I was hearing. Word around town.
Everyone's talking about it.
Everyone's talking about this segment. And that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Mostly gentlemen. I would be very surprised if a lady was out there listening to this, but we appreciate you. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Fact or bullshit. All right, we're going to start things off hot. Keegan really took charge of this segment. He split fact or bullshit up by the AFC and the NFC. So I thought that was nice. So I'm going to go one from the AFC. I'm going to go one from the NFC.
Okay.
So I'm going to alternate between the two.
I like that.
Cool. So for people at home or driving, wherever you're listening to this podcast, maybe listening in the shower, I don't know how you get down. Here's the deal. I'm going to lay out a headline, and then I'm going to ask a specific question. And two of the smartest people I know, people that can read through anything, are going to say fact or bullshit, and I'll come in and weigh in at the end. Again, people are talking about it. One of the most popular segments in all of fantasy football discourse. So I'm going to start things off hot. Okay, this one's a pretty big deal, and a lot of tinfoil hat conspiracies are coming out of this. This came out over the weekend. Jimmy Garoppolo's contract with the Las Vegas Raiders has a waiver included. So according to Mike Florio of Pro Football Focus, Jimmy Garoppolo's contract with the Raiders contains an injury clause permitting the franchise to void the deal he signed in March if he can't pass a physical heading in the 2023-2024 campaign. So I don't know if you guys remember, Jimmy Garoppolo breaks his foot against the Miami Dolphins. Rumor had it that he was going to be able to play in the playoffs with the 49ers. Turns out that wasn't true. Jimmy Garoppolo shows up to Las Vegas to sign his contract with the Raiders. All the reporters are there for the news conference. Jimmy Garoppolo leaves the Raiders without a contract. Turns out he failed his physical, and they put this void in his contract. If he can't pass it, he's not playing for the Raiders. So, normally, this is pretty weird, right? Brian Hoyer is their QB2. This is not ideal this far into the offseason. What makes things even weirder is 2 days before this news comes out, Brian Windhorse Fingers, if you're out there, Windhorse Fingers. What makes this even weirder is that Tom Brady has been announced as a minority owner in the Las Vegas Raiders. If you're having deja vu about Tom Brady becoming a minority owner of a team in the NFL, you probably should. He was about to be a minority owner of the Miami Dolphins when he briefly retired for 40 days last offseason. Now, that plan had a caveat that at some point he would come out of retirement and be quarterback for the Dolphins. Fast forward a year, and here we are. Tom Brady, minority owner, Las Vegas Raiders, Jimmy G, injured foot. He might not be a Raider next season. So fact or bullshit, Tom Brady will play quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders in 2023. Aidan, what do you think?
I'm going bullshit. There's a ton of parallels, so I
set
get
you
it.
up for that. I really just set you up for that. I just lobbed you.
It's like, I get it. Like, especially like McDaniel there. Like, there's so many things to make you think like everything is lined up. But I think at this point, Tom Brady is done playing football. I think he is a happy divorced man, enjoying dating younger women and doing whatever it is that you do with millions and millions of dollars down in Florida. So personally, I'm calling bullshit. If he came back, like, would I be all that surprised? Like, not entirely. Like, the dude's a freak. It's like he's absolutely obsessed with football. But I do think at this point in time, Tom Brady is done playing football.
Yeah.
Keegan. You hate him. You literally hate his guts. You know, you legit you were just like, this guy's the worst.
He's the worst.
We did a whole season of you hating him on the Buccaneers last year.
He is the worst.
Is this fact or bullshit?
It's bullshit. I just don't think there's any way that he could step in and play especially after what we saw last season. It's not like Tom is retiring early with something left in the tank. Like, there's not a lot there. He's scared to get hit. I'm not going to sit here and act like the Raiders team is something that you want to step in on if you're Tom Brady and put your 45-year-old body on the line for. So I'm calling bullshit.
Shaun, what do you think? You teed it up. You laid out some really good points for us.
I feel like I know where you're going to
factor bullshit.
Yeah.
Are the Raiders and Tom Brady giving you like I almost hooked up with them in college vibes? Isn't that what you're kind of getting here? No. That's what this reminds me of. They were supposed to be the team. Tom Brady was supposed to be a Raider. Dana White, UFC president and part-time human thumb, was literally telling everybody on a podcast that Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski were coming to the Raiders. Like it was going to happen, but they chose Derek Carr, right? Derek Carr is gone now. What do we know about Tom Brady and Jimmy G? Tom Brady, the last thing he ever wanted to do was let Jimmy G get his job. It's poetic. Josh McDaniels is the OC. The Raiders desperately need a face of the franchise. They desperately need someone to hold it together. Jimmy G is gonna get hurt. Like Brian Hoyer used to be in the Patriots quarterback room too. It's like, come on, they're just begging Tom. Like, Tom, come on. Get us to 7-10, 8-9. Let's have a little hope. Let's sell some tickets here. I think Tom Brady, I think it's a fact. I think Tom Brady will put on the silver and black this season and play quarterback. It's totally tinfoil hat conspiracy, but sometimes when it's just that obvious and it's staring you in the face, it's just going to happen. So I'm here for it.
I like it. First one, and we're already split. This is the beauty of factor bullshit. Is we are all very, very informed and passionate about this.
Okay, so let's talk about a story that's probably actually going to happen and has a real impact here on fantasy football. So we've talked a lot about how Alexander Mattison is one of the best plays right now at all of best ball. Go pick him up. He's going to be the starting running back for the Minnesota Vikings. Dalvin Cook is a post-June 1 candidate cut. It's going to happen. Well, 4 days ago, news comes out, according to Darren Dougie Wolfson. Dougie, want to know a little bit about that. But he spoke to someone in the know that Minnesota... Who's in the know? Like, what? I love these quotes on Rotoballer. Darren in the know. Okay. Minnesota Vikings running back Dalvin Cook may now consider playing on a reduced salary. So the possibility exists that Dalvin Cook will rework his deal, take some sort of a cut, because he's realizing that there isn't really another opportunity out there. Yeah, who really wants running backs right now? Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, they remain unsigned as it currently stands. So Dalvin Cook is thinking about taking a reduced salary and staying with the Minnesota Vikings. So Keegan Thompson, factor bullshit. Dalvin Cook is a Minnesota Viking in 2023.
I think I'm going to lean with fact here. I think the one option for him in the offseason or like post the Super Bowl ending was maybe Miami. I feel like that was a good fit, but after the drafting of Devon Achane, I just don't think that's a possibility. They re-signed the other two running backs, and I look around the rest of the league, and I just don't really see where he could go and also command like a pay raise. So I feel like he's just going to return to the Vikings this year and absolutely shatter all of our hopes of seeing Alexander Mattison in a true RB1 role. But who knows? Maybe we just put it off another year. As long as Mattison doesn't have any tread on his tires, or still has the tread on his tires, actually. We can just keep saying this every year and every offseason. Like, well, this is going to be the year. But I feel like for now, Cook is just going to be a Viking again.
What do you think, Helaire?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. It's just like, it doesn't feel like there's a better spot that he's going to go where, one, he's going to make, the most amount of money, and two, get the most amount of touches to compete on a competitive team. Like, he has the clear RB1 role there. He wakes up and rushes for 1,000+ yards every season. You got Justin Jefferson, now Jordan Addison to spread the field. Like, that's a very well-balanced offense, and he's kind of like a focal point of that offense as a running back, as he's been for years. So, again, probably takes a bit of a pay cut, probably somewhere below $10 million. I would assume they probably make him take almost about a 50% cut if I had to guess. I'm guessing that number comes down to closer to, I don't know, the 6 to 8 range. But I don't think he's going anywhere. Yeah, absolutely shattering our Madison shares that we've been drafting in best ball. And kind of, putting that plan on hold.
I don't know the specifics of his contract, and I don't really understand the specifics of the Vikings, like what their situation is. basically, if they have to re-sign, I think Justin Jefferson's holding out of OTAs right now because he wants that contract extension. I don't think he'd get paid this year. I don't really see why you wouldn't keep Dalvin Cook in the running back room. I mean, they have Alexander Mattison, Ty Chandler, our boy Dwayne McBride. It's pretty bottom tier running back room. Dalvin Cook wasn't as good as he's been in years past. He actually was dead last in rushing yards over expectation. But he did have a bunch of explosive plays. You remember that big game he had against the Colts and that comeback? Like he makes their offense better when he's on the field in at least some capacity. So
I completely agree.
I'm going fact. But if it comes out that like if they cut him and they can sign Justin Jefferson to a bigger deal or like whatever, I think that it might be bullshit. But I'm gonna stay fact there. So there it is, 3 for 3. We completely agree. That passes
first
the
consensus
bullshit
one.
test. That passes the bullshit test. Or unless it comes out that he actually isn't that interested in a pay cut, and it's a very little pay cut. If they can make the money work, I don't see why you wouldn't keep him. Okay, this is another one here. This is the one I was referencing earlier about a quarterback coming out in the press and saying, hey, I'm going to have a lot more passing yards. And that quarterback is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, in front of the press, said he expects to run less in 2023. His quote, run less and pass more in Todd Monken's new offensive scheme. And if you take a look at it, it kind of makes sense. They have OBJ. They have Rashad Bateman returning. They drafted Zay Flowers. Hopefully we're getting a healthy season out of Mark Andrews. Nelson Aguilar, right? We can't forget about his big addition to the offense. This has been an offense that typically has had a fullback, Patrick Ricard, running wheel routes, being featured in the pass game. And it's made it pretty hard for Lamar Jackson to really break through. So, boys, I'm curious. Fact or bullshit? Are the Ravens going to move away from being a run-first offense in 2023?
I would say fact. Kind of just going a bit deeper. Like when you look at Lamar Jackson's, like career high in terms of passing yards, it's barely over 3,000 yards. So in terms of like eclipsing that and really having a career year, like the bar really isn't all that high. I know you already named the weapons he has there. And like, again, it's not the most outstanding wide receiver room, but impressively enough, like it is the best group of weapons he's had in his NFL career. So I think with the scheme shift and the guys next to him, barring any significant health issues, I think it's at least closer to a much more balanced attack. And Lamar Jackson should easily go for, 3,500 plus, maybe even over 4,000 passing yards, in my opinion.
Keegan.
Yeah, I'd have to agree here. I think this is absolute fact. And I do think he could even reach that 4,000 passing yard like mark. You guys have already said it. It's the best pass catching group he's had in his career. You also get a healthy Dobbins, Gus Edwards still there. You have some, pretty interesting guys like Isaiah Likely in the lineup. But with Todd Monken, he has previous history that you can point to with these kinds of things. In 2019, he was coaching Cleveland, and Baker Mayfield threw for 3,800 yards passing that year with 22 TDs, and OBJ had his 5th 1,000-yard receiving season. And then 2016 through 2018 on the Bucs teams that he coaches, they ranked 3rd in first downs per game, 2nd in passing yards per game at about 280 a game, and 1st in third down percentage at like 44%. I mean, he has proven to be a much more pass-focused offense, but also a successful offensive driver for the teams he is coaching. Obviously, he's been with Georgia the past couple of years, and they have been great just offensively, being one of the best offensive teams kind of like in the SEC and just in the nation as well, too. So I think all signs point to wheels up for Lamar Jackson and him having a clear path to 4,000 passing yards this season. No problem. Like all the weapons we've mentioned, just throwing more in general. I mean, it's not going to take much for him to eclipse his highest passing total, but I think he might actually shatter that and say almost 1,000 more passing yards than his highest total ever, which would put him around like 4,100 yards on a season.
You're firing me up. I was on the fact train, and now I'm ready to go. I am ready to go right now. You dropped Todd Monken stats from 2019.
It's all there,
Baker
dude.
Mayfield threw for 3,800 yards. Oh my goodness. And Nick Chubb was in that offense, and Nick Chubb balled out. So that's great news for J.K. Dobbins. Yeah,
Huge.
I love the idea of Lamar Jackson doing less designed runs and getting to scramble from the pocket when plays break down. We just saw Justin Fields literally break the NFL as a scrambler. Shout out him. And I just want the idea of like Lamar taking less hits in the design run game, but still having the design run game elements while still running as a scrambler. I just think it makes him even more dangerous. So I'm juiced. I'm calling fact on this. I think Lamar's going to have the best passing year of his career, and I think we see the Ravens actually have maybe finishing like the top half of pass rate, like neutral pass rate. I do think they're going to throw the ball more, but we don't know. Maybe John Harbaugh isn't established at donkey, and we just didn't know. And Greg Roman had all the flack for being an established at donkey. Maybe John Harbaugh wants the team to run, so it'll be curious to see how that plays out.
Last little tidbit from that last season in Tampa with the Buccaneers. Their NFL, like in the NFL, they led in 320 yards passing a game. And listen to some of these numbers. Like they had a franchise record of 408 completions and 36 passing TDs that year under Monken. What is, off the top of your head, what do you think the highest number of completions in a season is for Lamar?
Like 230.
It's 265. So if you even give him 50 more than that, like 50 extra completions, a couple extra touchdowns here and there, well, you're looking at a massive upgrade in passing stats for Lamar. And in that season, Mike Evans had 1,500 receiving yards, career high and franchise record. So I think we're looking at an all-new Baltimore offense this year.
Looks like we might be drafting some Ravens in best ball tonight. Okay, the next one here. Good news here for Aidan Haller's dynasty shares. Seen practicing in OTAs, Tony Pollard. It looks like Tony Pollard's going to be healthy to start the year, so he's participating in a reduced capacity, it looks like. I've never seen these words put together before in my life. He's been able to take part in the team's reduced tempo organized team activity this week, according to head coach Mike McCarthy. Never seen that in my life. Yes, he suffered a fractured fibula. It looks like he had tightrope surgery on a high ankle sprain in his left leg. So ankle, leg, not a great injury for Tony Pollard, but it looks like he'll be ready to go for training camping to start the season. You look at that running back room, there's no Ezekiel Elliott, right? I think we have, oh my goodness, who's the backup running back on the
Malik
Cowboys?
Davis.
You get $5. I was going to say $5, whoever can name it off the top of your head. Keegan Thompson, by the way, is going to be going to therapy. It's actually a rule. If you know who Malik Davis is, you have to spend extended time in therapeutic counseling. Okay, so Malik Davis and Tony Pollard and our boy Deuce Vaughn. That's the running back room. So
I think I'll Rojo too. I think I'll Rojo. Don't you dare forget USC's finest Rojo.
Oh my goodness, I forgot about Rojo. That is sacrilege. Okay, so yes,
that's
so even their running back room is even sadder than I thought it was. So those are the four in the running back room. So I've got a question. Fact or bullshit? The Cowboys will not add another running back to this room before the start of the season.
I'll call bullshit. I think the Cowboys definitely add a free agent running back. I would likely think that it would be Leonard Fournette, because if I think of who Zeke was last year and the past couple of years of his career, they kind of need somebody of that running style. I think Fournette fits the bill, but I don't know outside of other options of that, but I just don't think that with McCarthy and the way he wants to run the offense with a more balanced and probably favorable rushing attack, that they go into the new season with Malik Davis, RB2, and Deuce Vaughn there. So,
Aidan, I know you. Can you give a biased answer to this one? Can you do it?
Yes. So, for the sake of my dynasty roster, I'd like to say bullshit. When you look at the injury that Tony Pollard suffered, it wasn't like a nasty break, something that was, very out of the ordinary. 3-month recovery timeline, like you said, already participating at a limited capacity. So do I think they're going to feature him extensively this upcoming year? Yes. But do I think they can afford to go into this next NFL season with those 3 running backs that we mentioned? No. So again, I think I can kind of have my cake and eat it too here. They're going to bring in someone else. But I think the path of Tony Pollard being a top 10 running back in fantasy this year is absolutely still on the table, and I'll be pounding that drum.
Well, now that I just realized Ronald Jones is in...
Oh, yeah, you change.
He's a threat.
I mean, that really changes how I'm approaching. I don't even see him in the best ball drafts. Like, it doesn't even show up. Like, I don't even... Does he even have a jersey?
That's just
1 hour ago.
It's just so you don't get distracted.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, this is best shape of my life season. This is the stuff that gets us out of bed. According to Kansas City Chiefs beat writers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is impressing at OTAs. So Kansas City Chiefs running back CEH is in great shape this offseason, and head coach Andy Reid noticed he looks quick and strong during organized team activities. Sidelines. So boys, Isaiah Pacheco, he's injured. Jerick McKinnon, he's 31. CEH gets his fifth-year option decline, but he shows up. He's in shape. So factor bullshit. Clyde Edwards-Helaire will take command of the Chiefs' backfield and will be the RB1 during the season for this team.
Holler, why don't you go first?
Me?
Yeah, why don't you go first, Holler?
So, personally, I'm calling bullshit. When you look at his 3-year career in the NFL this year, like, there's just nothing to inspire me that, like, there's this sudden turnaround this offseason that is going to, like, make me or the Chiefs, coaching staff and organization fall in love with him. As you mentioned, with Pacheco injured, like, kind of just to, like, open up another point, like, what's stopping the Chiefs from picking up a bargain bin running back and adding some more competition to that running back room? Like, again, I just don't think Clyde has done anything in 3 years to really inspire me to go all in on him being this, RB1 certified dude in that running back room. And even if he is, like, the Chiefs typically don't, produce fantasy relevant running backs that are like, real, top tier guys, RB1, RB2s. So, even if he is, how productive is that for my fantasy teams? Like, I'm not reaching on Clyde by any means. It's kind of something that if I get him below ADP, it's worth taking a swing as, your RB4 or something. But I don't know. I'm not inspired by this. I think we've been down this road in terms of trying to hype up Clyde, and I'm not falling for it again.
My fear with Clyde and my only hesitation with him is I don't know if he's good. I'm actually like certain he's not that good. Like I'm almost like really he's like not that fast and he's just not that strong and he's just not that good. That's my fear. But what if he is? Like that's the thing with Clyde. It's kind of like this mystery box where it's like first round running back, Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes wanted to draft him. He's been hurt. He had the appendicitis that sidelined him. And, if he scores a couple more touchdowns his rookie year, he has an amazing year. It's like, I think that like being 100% out on Clyde when he's basically free in drafts is kind of being closed-minded, but it's probably bullshit. Even though it's like lining up, Pacheco is a 7th round rookie. Jerick McKinnon's 31 and he's basically been hurt for half his career. Like, if Clyde were any good, he could take over the starting role in this backfield. Like, this is set up really well for him, but I don't know.
It should be a no-brainer, and the fact that it isn't is like, it's concerning. Keegan, what do you think?
I'm going to go the opposite, actually. I think because Isaiah Pacheco is a 7th rounder, like because Kansas City doesn't produce relevant RB1 fantasy like running back architects, right? Like, but that's exactly why there's a path for him to get back into the top spot and get into the good graces. I mean, sure, 5th-year option decline. That's not very encouraging for how the team views him right now and the plans of their future. But who's to say that he can't get back into the good graces of the coaching staff this year and be impactful like he was as a rookie? I mean, he had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in between, receiving yards and his running yards in his rookie year. Like there is a 1,000-yard player in there somewhere. This is also one of the best offenses in the league with Patrick Mahomes. So I think there is a path for him. Jerick McKinnon, 31 years old. Pacheco is a 7th rounder who has really good breakaway speed, but is somewhat of a clumsy runner sometimes. He's not always the most efficient. I think we're kind of blinded by Pacheco because he was this darling 7th round pick who's had some really good games, but he's not like the most perfectly efficient running back either. So I think, like Shaun was saying, to not be taking swings on Clyde and like pick 180, 190 in a best ball draft is like, it feels like malpractice to ignore that a little bit. I feel like he can win the job back.
I would rather have Clyde at ADP than Isaiah Pacheco.
Easily.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
I'd
from an ADP perspective.
ADP. Another storyline coming out of the Chiefs camp today from ESPN reporter Jeremy Fowler. Hey, the Chiefs are interested in DeAndre Hopkins, but they're not necessarily willing to pay him a ton of money. because they're really confident in Kadarius Toney potentially being their wide receiver 1. Fact or bullshit? Do the Chiefs actually think Kadarius Toney could be their wide receiver 1 next season?
This is bullshit. I think it's all about not like absolute bullshit. I'm sorry. This is more about like driving market value down in their eyes for DeAndre Hopkins than it is about what they actually believe in Kadarius Toney. I am a Toney bro through and through. I love him. I think he's so fun to watch, but he's not a true wide receiver 1. I don't know if he'll ever be. He can be a great wide receiver 2. I think if he actually stays healthy, there is a path there for him. But this is about, we don't want to pay DeAndre Hopkins what the Baltimore Ravens paid OBJ. Like, we want you on a bargain 1-year deal. Let's go win a Super Bowl. This is not about, we believe in Kadarius Toney. I'm absolute bullshit on it. First of all, MBS is wide receiver 1 right now as it stands on the Kansas City roster. So
don't tell that to them, because they're pumping that Toney stock this offseason.
Yeah, they're also deflating Hopkins stock. Like, oh my God.
Exactly.
Andy Reid and the Chiefs don't want to take a chance on Hopkins? What?
We don't need to pay you $10 million, Nook. We already have a wide receiver 1 in the building.
All good here.
Kadarius Toney, we pay him $2 million. He's on a rookie deal. I agree. Toney's like Percy Harvin. Like, he's a gadget guy. Best case scenario, you play him at running back, you play him at wide receiver, you punt returner. He's just awesome, unlocks your offense in really fun ways. But, like, come on, DeAndre Hopkins is an absolute stabilizer in an offense. Can beat man, can beat zone. Like, let's get real here.
Agreed.
Like, come on. Like, seriously.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy smoke screen here. It's just not happening. Keegan, like, they're just trying to drive down his value.
All right, we're going to stay in the AFC. And there's a lot of bullshit coming out of the AFC. So I think we'll stay in the AFC for a second before we jump to our last 2 in the NFC. A lot of excitement coming out of Jacksonville. You can see why. They had a huge come-from-behind win against the Chargers in the playoffs. They hung in there against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. There's a lot of optimism with Trevor Lawerence in his second year, and they just added Calvin Ridley to this offense. And beat reporters got a look at Calvin Ridley, and they said this guy just moves different. And he's already separated himself in this Jaguars wide receiver room as the clear-cut wide receiver 1. Pure OTA speculation, where a beat reporter is watching someone run routes. These are the same people that told us to draft Allen Robinson. So, question for all of you. We all love Calvin Ridley. We respect Calvin Ridley's game. We know this dude is going to be good at some point next season. But fact or bullshit, Calvin Ridley is the wide receiver 1 in this offense to start the season.
I'm going to go with bullshit. I think just from a Russ perspective, like, it's going to take him a bit to get back up to speed in the NFL. Like, obviously it's much different positions, but look at Deshaun Watson. Like, you don't just step away from the NFL and go back on a football field and, regain that same type of form. And again, totally different positions, much more processing from the quarterback position. But then you look at Christian Kirk too, a guy that just went for over 1,100 yards, almost 10 touchdowns. Like, that was uber productive there. I think they step in, and they're going to complement each other really nice. And would I say, like, clear-cut wide receiver 1? Probably not. Like, if you finish wide receiver 1 on that offense, no one's going to be surprised. But I think there's so many other people in that offense, especially Christian Kirk and others, that are going to get targets and that have already been productive with Trevor Lawerence in there, to where I think it's just crazy to assume that, like, Calvin Ridley was a top 10 fantasy wide receiver at one point. Like, to assume that that's going to happen right away, I think is really wishful thinking. So just for that reason, I'm calling bullshit.
Yeah, Keegan. I'm kind of on the same wave there. Just for all the things Aidan said, a wide receiver is such a technical position. Like, I find it hard to believe taking that long of a break, he's going to have his feet ready, his routes are going to be super crisp. And the other thing is, Jacksonville has the benefit of like a very balanced attack here. They've got Etienne. They have Christian Kirk. They have Zay Jones. Evan Ingram looks like he's back on the rise again. They've got a fantastic young quarterback in Trevor Lawerence. Like, there's no pressure. Like, this isn't Deshaun Watson where it's like, okay, you're not suspended anymore. Like, you're starting because we invested so much money in you and draft capital. Like, Calvin Ridley kind of got on a bargain. I think we'll look back like, wow, that was a great play by Jacksonville. But because of that, they don't need to force him into wide receiver 1 duties. Like, they don't need to bank on him for helping Trevor Lawrence's production in this next year of his like young career. They have such a well-rounded group of talent that I don't think, more out of situation, Calvin Ridley doesn't have to be the wide receiver 1. Will he be on a points per game average, their wide receiver 1 at the end of the season? Potentially. There's a very good possibility of that. But will he need to be the immediate game changer that he once was in Atlanta? Probably not.
I think what's really solid about this argument, Keegan, I think you touched on it a little bit. Calvin Ridley's probably going to be the wide receiver 1 for defensive coordinators, but for fantasy football managers, I think Christian Kirk is going to start off with where he left off with Trevor Lawerence, which is being incredibly productive for fantasy.
Yeah, my 70% ownership of Christian Kirk would tell me that too.
No bias. No bias. Another thing that's come out of Jacksonville training camp is it turns out Doug Peterson all offseason said, hey, we got to mix in more running backs into that room. We can't ride Etienne like we rode Etienne. We want to keep him fresher. We're going to draft a running back. Turns out they draft a running back in the 3rd round. And now everyone's realizing that there could be more of a committee in Jacksonville. See how that works when you take a running back in the 3rd round. So a lot of people are talking about Travis Etienne, and a lot of people are saying some pretty crazy shit about Travis Etienne. So my question for you two gentlemen, factor bullshit. Tank Bigsby is going to make this more of a committee than people are willing to admit in Jacksonville.
Brother, I'm going bullshit.
I'm going bullshit.
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'm going bullshit. Yeah, I'll keep it brief, Shaun, because I know you feel very strong about this. I think last year, the expectations, first of all, for Travis Etienne were a bit unfair. Coming off that Liz Frank injury, I think people were just expecting a bit too much out of him. And what you look at what he still accomplished last year, especially down the stretch as Jacksonville really found their groove, he was insanely productive, both from a rushing perspective and pass catcher. So again, I think like a best case scenario for Tank Bigsby would be like a 70-30 split, and again, I think that's best case scenario. Like they have very similar skill sets, but I just think Etienne is just an all-around better running back. So I'll kind of leave it at that. I'd love to hear what you guys think, especially you, Shaun, as you are a big Etienne guy.
So when you draft at the 10th, 11th, and 12th position in best ball, you really have no choice but to become an Etienne stan because he's just who you take in the 3rd round. So I take a lot of Travis Etienne, and you look into some of his numbers, right? And Travis Etienne last season was number 1 in rushing yards over expectation. He was number 1 in rushing yards over expectation. That's pretty damn good. He was 4th in missed tackles force. He was 10th in runs of 10 plus yards or more. He was 4th in runs over 15 plus yards or more. And he was 8th in total first downs. Pretty good for a running back that was basically in his rookie season, who spent the entire offseason recovering from a broken foot. We'd all acknowledge that, right? Like pretty good stats.
Yep.
The dude had similar rookie production to Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor. Like those are really similar seasons to rookie Nick Chubb and rookie Jonathan Taylor. And the fantasy football community is trying to shit on that season because he didn't have a 1.2 yards per route run, because he didn't catch 60 balls, because he wasn't in the DeAndre Swift role that people thought he would be in. Well, guess what? Travis Etienne isn't like DeAndre Swift. He's actually good, and his coaching staff wants to play him and wants to feature him. This guy is downright explosive, and he's a difference maker. And if you're telling me that Tank Bigsby's going to come in and maybe eat into some of his touchdown production, is going to maybe get more first downs, is going to help grind through some downs, maybe catch some passes, I think I'm cool with that. I wouldn't admit that Travis Etienne at his size is someone who's going to command an 80-85% workload. And guess what? You're not drafting him to have an 80% workload share. You're getting him in the 3rd or 4th round. Mm-hmm. Like Etienne is a difference maker. He's a year removed from his Liz Frank injury. He's explosive as all hell. And this offense is going to be awesome. Like truly awesome. Give me all the Etienne. I'm calling absolute bullshit. This dude is going to have a monster season next year. I even saw someone on Twitter say he will never be a top 12 PPR finisher or half PPR finisher. I'm calling bullshit. He was already 17 last year. I don't think that was the ceiling for Travis Etienne. That's what I'm saying. I'm not passionate about it. I'm not.
I love that. Yeah.
I haven't thought
about it. Tank Bigsby has he's got Dearness Johnson and Jermichael Hasty that he's like fighting for secondary touches with. Like the fact that he's just going to cut into Travis Etienne, like I think he's got bigger problems too with guys,
he's got to beat
have shown production at the NFL level. It's like he's close. He's so much closer to them than he is Travis Etienne. It's like I completely agree with you, Shaun. I am all in on this as someone who has keeper value in Etienne. I am doing cartwheels that I'm getting him the 7th round of a PPR redraft this year. I don't even know where to start.
I'm literally with Etienne, and we'll go on to the next one. It's not like this is Roschon Johnson versus Khalil Herbert, okay? This is a first-round running back. I don't care if the previous administration fucking drafted him, okay? This is a guy who went in the first round as clear rapport with your star running back who is really fucking good, okay? And we all love Khalil Herbert, but it would make a lot of sense for people like, hey, Roschon Johnson's coming for his job. That makes sense. Like, you think they're just going to phase Etienne and everything he brings into the game out? I'm not buying it. I'm really not buying it. No. All right. Broncos training camp. Russell Wilson said he's coming into this season leaner and meaner. Of course, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Russ has got a new head coach, and he's still the corniest dude on the planet, leaner and meaner. You gotta love Russell Wilson. But it looks like he has lost some weight, and it looks like he has a lot to prove in his first year with Sean Payton as head coach. So, gentlemen, factor bullshit. Sean Payton in this new look Denver Broncos offense will allow Russell Wilson to revitalize his career.
I'm going to go fact, but on a not all the way completely fact. I think to return to his old self, we're talking about a multi-pro bowler, like almost all pro caliber type quarterback. I don't know if he can go back to that completely in one season, but his bar for performance is so low. Like, I would have been a disaster statistics wise if he didn't have those last 4 weeks where he was helping people win fantasy matchups as a crazy waiver. We're talking about Russell Wilson, a waiver wire pickup quarterback last year. The bar for him is below my table. So will he play better under Sean Payton? Yes. Will he be back to his old self? I'm not entirely sure, but this is also a tryout for Russ. I mean, Sean Payton is taking over this team for the future. He is taking over this team not for 1 year. He is coming out of kind of his coaching sabbatical to take the Denver Broncos back to relevancy. And if Russ doesn't pan out, Russ isn't part of the Sean Payton plan. This is Sean Payton's team now. This is not Russ Wilson's team. No. So if he wants to continue to play at a high level, play with a good coach, he has to kind of like I said, he has to try out this year. It is a 1 year go trial period for Russell Wilson. So I do think he will take it a bit more serious this year. Not that he wasn't last year, but you know what I mean? Everything is going to have that little extra bit of detail that I know Russ has had in his past. And he is a really good quarterback when it comes down to it. He did have an awful season and he's kind of a corny guy, but we forget just how electric he is when he's on his game,
Yes. Yes. And that's going to make a hell of a TikTok, Keegan. Let's go. Cut it up. Short form content. Keegan, I totally agree with you. They brought in a bunch of offensive linemen, brought in Samaje Perine. I think they're going to run kind of an establish it offense. They're going to run the ball. They're going to take deep shots. They just brought in Marvin Mims. They picked up Jerry Jeudy's 5th year. They have Greg Dulcich. They have the corpse of Cortland Sutton still out there running routes. You still got to respect him. He actually might be pretty good next year. Probably not, but you never know. They have guys. They have all-world right tackle Mike McGlinchey. I mean, that guy, what a difference maker. But seriously, he's an upgrade. He's fine. So, they made some additions that are, I think, going to insulate and protect Russ from himself. And Sean Payton's a good, play caller. So, I think I'm calling fact. I think Russ is going to be good next season. I don't know if he's going to be great, but I think he's going to be good. But Aidan, this leads me to my next factor bullshit. We mentioned that he's going to have a kind of an establish it run first offense. Well, Javonte Williams has been limited in OTAs. He's there. People are saying he might be ready for training camp, according to Sean Payton. So, Aidan, factor bullshit. Javonte Williams is going to start the season and play every game this year for the Denver Broncos.
I think that's bullshit. That knee injury was nasty. It was every major
all the 3 L's. He got all the L's. It was all the
ACL,
ACL,
PCL, just a brutal injury. Again, they keep saying it's possible, but like you just heard Sean Payton talking about it just a couple weeks ago. They're very high on Samaje Perine. They brought him in and expect him to carry a heavy workload early on. You look at him when he had stepped in for Joe Mixon, he's been productive as a starting running back in the NFL. And I think they brought him in for that reason, especially as Javonte is getting ramped up. Like, that's a serious knee injury. Like, it takes a while to get back to your old form. And, like, what is his old form? Like, he never, there was always kind of like the hype train on Javonte Williams, but, like, he's never been this bona fide stud running back in the NFL. So, like, who's to say Samaje Perine, halfway through the season or so, is not like they're just RB1 going forward, splitting touches with Javonte. I don't know. That knee injury is serious, and I don't think there's enough tape for me to say who's to say that Javonte Williams doesn't lose that RB1 job entirely to Samaje Perine, who's already proved it, I think, at a much higher level
crazy.
Than Javonte
that is
Williams.
A crazy take to think that Javonte will lose his RB1 status. Once he's healthy, he'll be in that offense, but I don't know if he'll start the season. Also, shout out to Samaje Perine, Hendricks High School legend. I watched him tat us up for like 250 yards in high school. He played against McNeil, and it was like his lowest rushing total of the season. He was an absolute fucking man in high school. Big Perine guy.
Samaje
what do you guys think?
We're at the Samaje Perine moment in the podcast. I like Perine. I do.
No, not week really one, but week one, though. Javonte's a good fucking running back, man. Let's not have revisionist history here. We're having short-term memory.
I think
loss.
so.
Like, let's not forget that Javonte is very, very talented.
No, Javonte's really good at forcing tackles, but it's like the Kenneth Walker thing. Like, are you actually good at moving the chains? Like, are you doing the thing that wins football games, or are you doing the thing that gets us really excited to talk about
this is a fantasy podcast.
But no, to be fair, you're right. I will say this about Javonte.
Not a dynasty owner. Not a dynasty owner.
His receiving production was Javonte Williams' receiving production with Russ was through the fucking roof before he got hurt. We all know what Sean Payton likes to do with running backs that catch the ball. Very, very attractive fantasy asset if he is healthy. I just don't think he is, and that's why I think Samaje Perine's a great buy right now. So I'm calling bullshit. I don't think he's ready to start the season.
If I'm really going in on Javonte, I'm probably waiting to 2024. Like, I'll be grabbing shares from this year, but it's kind of like I need him to fully recover before I'm all in, and I think this year is going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride. So, we'll see how this goes. But the 2024 campaign, that's when I'll really beat the drum on this one.
All right, quick hitters before we get out of here. Real quick, before we do get to best ball draft. So
let's do it.
Let's get a clock going. I don't even know how they do it in the sports shows, like 30 seconds. Okay, rapid fire. I'm not even going to talk. Well, I might talk about one of them. But rapid fire.
I wonder which one.
Daniel Jones, super impressed with Darren Waller. I guess he's saying that what he can bring to the offense is really special. Vice versa, Darren Waller's feeling the love too. He said, here with the Giants, they actually listen to what you're saying. They look for your input. So I guess factor bullshit. Darren Waller goes off this year for the New York Giants and really transforms this offense.
Fact. I think that's an easy fact. Like, the talent's never been an issue with Darren Waller. It's just a matter of health. If Darren Waller plays, at least 2/3, 75% of the game, Daniel Jones has never had a target like that. So easy fact for me. It's just barring health for him.
Video has come out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers OTAs, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty. It's like watching like My Strange Addiction. You just can't look away. And it looks like Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask have been throwing in some really windy conditions. I have no idea if winds are gusting, but the two quarterbacks are not accurate at all. It was like a highlight mixtape of guys just missing wide open wide receivers running routes against air. So factor bullshit. The Tampa Bay quarterback's QB situation will be so bad that Chris Godwin and Mike Evans will not be fantasy relevant in 2023.
I'm going to say bullshit. Chris Godwin has a path to PPR fantasy relevancy and maybe some half PPR stuff. He'll need to get in the end zone for half PPR, but if you're still talking about a guy that plays short and intermediate game, like Baker can do that, right? Like Baker can support at least one wide receiver, like a Godwin type. That's kind of like a quarterback's best friend. And I'm going to say fact on Mike Evans that he will have a fantasy relevant season under the contingency that he is not a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. So assumption he's not a Buccaneer somehow, some way. But I don't know. I have doubts about Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield's deep ball accuracy, but there's also a chance where Mike Evans is fantasy relevant when we get to redraft time because his value will be shot in the foot, and you'll be getting a bargain on him where he's not like your wide receiver 2 that you're drafting. Maybe you're picking him up as like your wide receiver 4 or 5, and then he's still fantasy relevant based off ADP.
Yeah, I'd say his streak of 1,000+ receiving yards to start his career is on life support. It is in serious danger. To your point with Chris Godwin, if I had to pick one of these two to potentially be like a top 20 wide receiver in fantasy, it'd for sure be Chris Godwin. Given like his route tree and where he plays on the field, I think it's a much safer floor. Whereas who knows, maybe Mike Evans does figure it out, and Noodle Arm Baker is able to get it to him. But like Mike Evans is very pop big play dependent, more outside the numbers. Whereas I think Godwin's a lot safer here.
It's bad when I'm texting things like, I just hope Carson Wentz finds his way onto the Bucs. Like, those are real texts that I'm sending. That's how bad their quarterback situation is. A lot of people are saying they're this year's Lockett and Metcalf. The only issue is Geno Smith's actually pretty good.
That's a big issue.
Yeah, that's a
big issue.
Yeah.
All right, our last one before we get out of here. Tomorrow, or today, actually, when you're listening to this, it looks like Brock Purdy's going to start throwing. And it looks like he is on track to be ready at week 1 or right before week 1. So factor bullshit. Brock Purdy starts for the 49ers week 1 of the 2023 season.
Bullshit. It is such a tight timeline that they're trying to thread right now. Like, it would pretty much have to be like, right on track with every step of the way in terms of, him getting on the field, throwing consistently. Like, any type of setback, there's no fucking chance. And if they're as high on them as, we think they are, like, why risk that with your young potential franchise quarterback? Throw him on the pup, let him get healthy, let Sam Darnold or Trey Lance get beat up, and then bring in Brock Purdy.
That's honestly the best argument that I've heard from anyone, Aidan. Like, no joke. This idea that if they love Brock Purdy so much, why would they rush him and risk hurting him? Like, that actually is a really interesting idea.
It makes no sense.
I've heard
and the Niners schedule, that we've talked about, is a bit of a cakewalk. Like, you could put him on the pup and he probably comes off. The Niners are 3-1. And you've got your healthy franchise quarterback. So,
and all language from like San Francisco brass, like in the offseason, has been like, we like Brock. Like, it is kind of Brock's job to lose. And like exactly what Aidan's saying, like, if you believe in him, like, you want to protect him. That's why they brought in Sam Darnold. So they didn't end up with a situation like in the playoffs when you're down to Josh Johnson. They brought in like somebody who has been in the league that can be this kind of safety like net for them until Brock is ready. And I don't even know what to think about Trey Lance, but everything I've heard from San Francisco, Brock is the guy. So I don't think he starts.
No.
It's a good take. I honestly hadn't heard that. I don't think he's going to be ready to go. It would be pretty wild. Like, honestly, dude would be kind of a legend if he was ready to go. Yeah. The legend of Brock Purdy he spends like Paul Bunyan if he's ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay, that will do it. Thank you everybody for tuning in. OTA season's the best. We'll have more content coming your way. We're going to talk Dynasty. We haven't done an updated Dynasty rookie rankings yet. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about some of our Dynasty targets, some of our Dynasty sells. It's going to be a great time as we gear up for the 2023 season. Thank you again for tuning in and making RTM what it is. If you're still listening, go ahead, hug a loved one, touch some grass. We will be here as we march closer to kickoff, September 2023. We're at the half point of the NFL offseason, boys.
I think there's 100 days.
Oh, music to my ears, Keegan.
And to make it sound better, I think there's only...
With that, I had 16 Sundays until I get to hear Scott Hansen's voice. I am beyond excited.
I love that.
All right, boys. Until next time.